Good Sunday evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. Well, we're going to talk about top speed gearing a little bit and braking. So hang with me till after the intro and we'll get into it.
0, 1. Let's get started.
Okay, so something you don't think about when you think about going fast is stopping, really. And especially with a electric car, because your ESC could be great as far as handling the power putting out to go, because that's all it's doing is providing power to go. So once you get going, well, then you got to stop. Well, the motor reverses itself. So now you're applying power against the momentum that you've built up. If you're going 100 miles an hour, well, then the motor's got to try to slow down 100 miles an hour, I mean, it's all kind of relative how fast you're going. And I have personally caught an ESC on fire with the brakes, because the brakes are it takes way more power to brake than it does to anything else, because you're already going. So if your ESC is really kind of and you're gearing it pretty high because you want that speed, and then you're trying to use the ESC for brakes, you better be careful. I've been there. So if you're getting, let's look at these. Here's some pinions. This one's a 21. I think this is might be a 22 or 23. This one's a 23, so it's a 22, and 24, and then a 25. So, and then that's just an 18, but that is a 52 tooth spur gear, and stock is 57. So that's 5 teeth down on the spur gears quite a bit. And spur gear is a lot bigger deal than the pinion gear. So when you start dropping teeth on the spur gear, you normally start coming up on the pinion gear, which just makes it even higher. I've got an 18 on this right now just because I was trying to see what it would do. I was not on the best tires, so I'm going to do it again on better tires. Those mini pins just spun so bad, I really don't know how fast it went. I mean, it would GPS'd at 80 even, but I do know it was spinning quite a bit. So, so when you get up to high gearing, where you're, getting close to the mid 50s, or not mid 50s, but low 50s, high 40s maybe. I think I have some small spur gears. I think the smallest one I have is a 40. I have a bunch of spur gears for an ALX gas motor that I have. So I have I can go down a bunch on the spur gear, and then I got 5 spur gears for a guy that had them for sale on Facebook. He had 5 pinions for $28 shipped, 21 through 25, which I thought was a great deal. So I got them. So I've got plenty of gearing to go. I was not worried about my brakes, even though I have caught a ESC on fire, which was not an MGM ESC. It was a ZTW 300 Beast, and this was 6, 7 years ago. This was a long time. And it was my first 12S buggy, which the ZTW did really good when my gearing was close to stock, maybe, a couple teeth up on the pinion gear only. It did real good on 12S. It was really cool. I mean, and then when I tried to start top speeding it and I got into the gearing it pretty high and that kind of thing, I just never experienced anything like that. So with the brakes, like the first time I run it, I just run it down the road, not fast at all. I don't even think it got over 15 miles an hour. But when I hit the brakes to turn it around, it just in the fire. So, you know, after talking to some people and, you know, learning a lot, you do learn a lot when something like that happens. I decided to try mechanical brakes. Well, then I had just hexes. I didn't have BRPs. And I had ordered BRPs, but I didn't know anything about BRPs, and I really didn't know anything about mechanical brakes at the time that I ordered the BRPs. And so I didn't order BRPs for mechanical brakes. So I had BRPs on the back of my top speed Baja, and I had hexes on the front because I had disc brakes for hex set up. So that's what I did. Fastest I ever got was 106, and I got videos of it. We went down the freeway because I could never find anywhere long enough and straight enough, and just, it was the best option. So this time, I bought these brakes months ago and months ago and months ago, when I put them on I was building a Baja, and I put them on it, and I ordered the BRP adapter, the IRP adapters for the disc brakes, and I put them on a Baja with super spikes, and the front wheels wouldn't fit. Like, you know, they just wouldn't fit. So I ground the calipers down, and I tried to make enough room, and all this, that, and the other, and I never got them to work right. So, you know, I got to thinking about what I was doing at the time, and I wasn't top speeding, and was using stock gearing, and, you know, I didn't really need them, so I just kind of put them in a box. You can use the adapters that are for disc brakes without them. So I just put them in the box and didn't use them and didn't really worry about it. And so then we get to fast forward to now, and I'm actually going to top speed some more. So I got the disc brakes out and got to looking, and I don't have super spikes, but I do have some ribbed 2-inch front wheels. And they wouldn't fit. You tighten them down and the wheel's locked. You bolt the brakes up, and I clearanced the caliper a bunch, you know, and still right now, one side just isn't quite, I mean, it's okay. It's better than some people's normal buggy, you know, depending on how their bearings are and stuff. But it's just making some noise, and it's a little rough. And I guess it's the caliper or the way the rotor is, because the rotor wants to ride right on the end of the hex because of where they mount to the steering. So, you know, it could be a lot better, but this one side I had to shorten a little bit because there was so much play in it when I get it all tightened down, which I got a picture and everything I'll show you. But there was so much play when I got it all tightened down that the carbon fiber disc would just slide down in between, and it would slide off the hex. And I was like, holy cow. So I put a washer in there. It didn't help. I did this and that, and it didn't help. And finally I was like, I'm just going to have to shorten this. I shortened this down, and then there won't, there won't be any play. So I shortened it down, and then I could kind of adjust how much, so I Loctited it, and I got it where it needed to be, and I put it there, and it'll be good. And it spins like it should, but there's still a little bit of a, but it's clearance in itself right now. I mean, I know it is, because every time I spin it, there's a little bit of plastic on the table, and I'm okay with that, That is what it is. So I've got it all hooked up now, but let's look at what I got and what I did. This is my brake setup. I like the cable brakes over the hydraulic brakes because if anything happens to that tube, your brakes are gone. So I'm going to take this apart and put the brakes on. I'll probably kind of talk while I do it. So here in just a second, I'm probably going to speed up the video and do it all. I've already got the wheels off and got the hubs off already. Got the Loctite out. Got the carbon fiber rotors on. And got everything back together. Now I'm putting the disc brakes on. So now I'm going to put the bracket that holds the cables on and the linkage to the servo. And you got to take these bolts out right here on both sides of the shock tower, and then that piece just kind of drops down in there. So I'll be back in just a second. If you haven't had a chance to like and subscribe, please go ahead and do that. It does help the channel a lot. And, we want to keep growing, keep making videos. Thanks for your support. Well, right here, I'm not sure yet, but I'm kind of thinking that my hardware is not going to be long enough. So the screw kind of feels like it's tightening up, but it's not tightening up, and it kind of feels like it could start. So I keep cranking on it for a minute because sometimes these screws are a little finer thread than you think they are, and it takes a minute for them to start tightening. But the first one didn't, so I'm going to go ahead and try the second one, and the second one's not having, as much luck either, so crank on it a little bit more just to see. They ain't, feeling underneath it. It's not coming through. So kind of felt like it was tightening up there for a second, but it's not. So I'll end up pulling that screw out here in just a second, and I'm probably going to the bolt bin right now. So I'll be back in just a second. So I walked over there and I couldn't find my bolt bin because it's under the Baja. The Baja's resting on it. So decided to go ahead and move this to the other side for some reason right now and get these plugs in. I'm probably thinking about what I'm about to do, and because I don't know if I have hardware. I don't think I do. So I'm getting the little plastic pieces put in and the clips in them, and this front one, the clip for some reason wants to go down when it comes through, so it's hitting on the aluminum. There's a shoulder, and it's hitting on the inside of that shoulder, which it is not ever going to go. So what I end up having to do is get this little screwdriver and kind of pry it up while I push it through, and that took a minute. But here in a minute, I'm going to realize that the bolt bin's underneath the Baja, and I'll swap out whatever roll of duct tape or something for my little box of bolts, and see if I have any hardware that will work. So I was pulling on the brakes, and of course the hardware's not long enough, so I'm gonna take a screw out and see if I can find some hardware, swap out a roll of duct tape from a bolt box that's underneath the Baja, and see what I got. Once I realized the box is under the Baja, and I didn't realize, and I think I just realized. So I'm gonna walk over here and do something. So I happen to have one. I'm not sure if I have two. Um, that's a good thing about having a bolt box, that you kind of keep. I've got a couple different ones, and they're kind of separated in size. One's a bunch of small stuff. One's a bunch of small long stuff, and then one's a little bit larger stuff. That's the box we're in right now. It's a little bit larger. There was another one, so I did have two. So I'll get this tightened down, and then we'll move on to the linkage. I do have a little 12-volt impact driver, but on some of this stuff, I just kind of like doing it by hand because you don't want to over tighten anything, and you can tear stuff up over tightening it, and sometimes it's just better to do it by hand. I'll get that all tightened up, and I kind of noticed that there's some play in it, and the disc wants to ride on the end, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm going to have to do something. Okay, so I got everything put on. I haven't got it hooked to the servo yet, but I got everything on the car and everything, and the wheels are hitting the calipers. Which this is a set of brakes that I've had on a Baja previously, and I did have to grind the calipers down like for clearance on the wheels, and they never were quite like I wanted them, so I just took them off and put them in a box. And it was a set of BRP Super Spikes that I was using them on. So I'd used these manual brakes before, but not on the BRP wheels, just the Hex, and they work great. This is actually the first time I'm trying to use them on BRPs. I've had more problem than I'd like to, care to admit to. Right now, here, let me show you. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take my Dremel drum sander, and I'm going to go around the inside of that lip. I'm just going to open it up a little bit on both of the back sides of these wheels that cost like $66 a piece. So I did one. You can see it's laid back pretty good all the way around. I probably need to test fit this one before I do the other one, but I'll probably just do the other one, then go back upstairs. So you can see the play here in the hub, and the rotor actually slides down in there right there and is off the hex. I spun the hex and it didn't move, so I lined the hex back up on the rotor to get back up on the hub, and I have to fix that. That can't be like that. So I thought it was a screw, just needed a washer, but that's not the case. So this side of the hub is too long. No matter what I do, if tightening all the way down, it's got that play in it, and it's too much. So I have to shorten that end right there about where my thumb is. Here's the piece after I ground it down on my speedy cut. I just let it run and ground it down on the blade. Well, grinding it down fixed the problem. I was able to tighten the nut up, tighten the screw up that's in the back of the hub and allow myself to get it where I wanted it as far as rolling resistance. It spins really good now. I Loctited the screw and it won't go nowhere. And that I'm going to eventually probably have to do that to the other side, although it's not quite as bad as this side was. The rotor won't slide down in between the hub and the actual carrier. So I will have to do that, but I don't have to do it right now. So let's just real quick take a look at the disc brakes. Here are the disc brakes on the Baja. You can see I've ground down the caliper. Everything spins pretty free. It ain't gonna spin much better with that carbon fiber rotor in the caliper. There's a little bit of drag there. Here's the other side. It might be just a little better actually. Here's the linkage and the servo. Everything's hooked up and I'm sure everything will work. I gotta get a 4-channel receiver. I only have a 3-channel, and that's something we're gonna talk about right now. So you have to have a radio that's capable of servo or channel mixing. Because on this setup, on this setup, your gas is going to give power to the ESC, but when you hit the brakes, it's going to want to operate whatever channel this servo's on. So you have to be able to channel mix. And Futaba does it easy. I mean, all radios that are, decent radios, I'm sure are capable of doing it. But you have to be able to channel mix to be able to use the manual brakes with the ESC. And that's something I'll go over when we get there. Now, part of the reason I need a 4-channel is because I have a BEC that plugs into the receiver for power. And it's actually just for power. There's no signal to it. So I might be able to get a Y and be able to plug my 3rd-channel receiver, my 3rd-channel servo into the 3rd channel with a Y and plug my BEC into that Y, which will still get the power and the ground, and only the servo will get the signal, or read it anyway, because the BEC doesn't have a signal wire. I believe that would work. Let me know what you think in the comments if you think that'll work or not, because the BEC doesn't have a signal wire at all, and I think that'll work. But let me know if you know better. I appreciate it. So I was thinking that I might have a Y. So I got to looking through a box of wires I have, and this is what I found. I think it's going to work. So what I need to do is I need to go into the ESC, which I've got it all hooked up here to the computer. And I'm about to turn on the ESC and it'll connect. But once I turn the ESC on and it connects, which it's about to, we go into settings and then we put it on 1 way, which will be forward, and take it off of bi-directional because we don't want reverse enabled. We're going to disable reverse, which is P2. P2. While I finish that up, which that's done. Got to get the radio out. Turn it on. So once your radio's on, you're gonna go to menu, and then you're gonna go to the next screen, and then there's brake mixing. We click on brake mixing, and then we're gonna turn it on channel 3, and then push channel 3, and then that's on. Exit back out. So I'm going to go back in here to the menu, next page, brake mixing, and then of course that's on at 100. On the first channel it is turned down to 0 because you don't want any brake other than on the third channel. The way the screen is, you can't see, but I was giving it brake and it was activating the third channel. You could see on the screen of the radio. Using that Y as an extension for the steering servo also enabled me to get the steering, the brakes, and forward all working. So I was mistaken on my receiver. The Futaba R204GF-E, which is for an electric vehicle. It doesn't have an antenna or anything like that. It has 1, 2, and 3, and then there's a 4/ battery. And I didn't realize that. So I was able to get everything plugged up and working, because the receiver has 4 places in it. So let's get the front wheels back on it and get it back on the table. Here she is, ready to go. I think I need to change that servo out on the brakes, but other than that, she's ready to go. Well, I appreciate y'all hanging with me through that. It wasn't quite as easy as I thought it would be, but everything's right, and it seems like it's going to be really good. All we can do is test it and see. So, if you hadn't had a chance to like and subscribe, that don't cost nothing. It really helps us out, and keeps us going. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
0, 1. Let's get started.